Next up, we have Mr. Praveen Kumar, Managing Director, Electrify Private Limited. Can we have a huge round of applause for all the amazing panelists and speakers over here? I now request Mr. Abhijit to please moderate the session. Thank you so much.
Hello. Thank you so much. So, digital footprint, ecosystem and connected highways. A very interesting subject which we are going to talk today for next 1 hour. And this is not only being limited from the e-highway perspective, but there are many other ecosystems also which we will be taking up. So, we'll go our panel to panel and people would get good 5 to 7 minutes to speak about their contribution in this ecosystem. And then we'll start with the question which usually in conferences are asked very late, that these upgradation, these extra cost which we are already adding to the logistic or to the infrastructure or to the commissioning of new ecosystem, how are we going to deal with them? Because when it comes to procurement or when it comes to financing or adoption, we usually manage to do very little as what we expect should be done. So we'll start with the lady on the panel, and we'll more than happy to know your journey into this ecosystem and also about you, your organization, and to the digital connected vehicle and the ecosystem of what we are going to discuss for next some time, what you have been doing and where we can ask you more questions or more information from you.
Thank you, and thanks for the invite. I'm looking forward to hearing from all the panelists. My name is Thalia Skoufa. I work for a UK-based organization called Energy Systems Catapult, and we're an independent non-for-profit organization looking to accelerate innovation, looking to support the UK meet its net zero emission targets. And we do that in various ways. So we either support innovators, we look at supporting government, doing thought leadership in areas of all aspects of the energy system. And as part of that, I'm leading the transport practice. In the past 2-3 years, we've been working in India as well. We're working with SMEs both from the UK, but here as well to develop new products, develop new solutions, and support the clean mobility transition.
So I'll come back to you, but I'm putting a question for you for the next round when I'm going to come back is from your perspective, the kind of connected highways when we are talking about, how Globe is going ahead with the energy side and also from the connecting from the grid side and then net metering, or when it comes to connecting a vehicle with the ecosystem of utility. These are the things which we would like to know about UK, how it is happening and how transition is going on. You will be able to add value not only to the panel, but also to the ecosystem which we are going to carry very soon. So Indranil, I'll come next to you. You have a mic. Almost all of us understand that the ecosystem of having a digital footprint means ERP, application, or some sort of website. How do you look at it from the perspective of your work, and what does your company and your role is into this complete ecosystem? But before you speak, I'd add 2 things, that these inputs are not only to our very great audience, and also 2,500 people are watching us online, and these would be converted into videos for the YouTube, so that we can only assume that these conversations which we are going to have is going to not only be for the panel purpose, but also for the purpose of what kind of ecosystem we wish to have in this country, and what are the basic takeaways we can take away from this 60 minutes. So over to you.
Super. I'm Indranil. I represent a company called .create. So historically, we are into energy management, and we help organizations fulfill their renewable energy obligations by integrating renewable energy into their existing grids. Now, having said that, how we are trying to be a part of this endeavor is that at the technology side, we are looking at providing a platform which integrates all the players in the ecosystem with a dashboard which can easily be accessed by all the players independently, and also even the users who are part of the ecosystem. Now, it was interesting that Thalia mentioned that they are also into the business of energy management. I think somewhere where we add value is that now that we are moving on to Web 3.0, where there's not only seamless integration of a lot of data, that data can actually be culled out in understanding what are the peak loads, what is the kind of demand generation which is happening at the various pit stops or at the various outlets of this EV highway. And at the same time, we'll also be able to understand what is the load, and we'll be able to predict what are the various, what is the energy consumption per outlet. And so we take into account, so we already have existing softwares which kind of predict what is your demand generation. And that helps in a real-time assessment of what it would happen if there is, say, for example, a natural calamity or a weather change, how it would kind of affect the energy consumption of a particular area. And at the same time, because all the data is going to be integrated, we'll be able to also understand and gauge what is the energy consumption of the vehicles as well. So I think from the entire ecosystem perspective, what we are really excited to really be a part of this endeavor is to understand the energy dynamics which is going to come out. And of course, the data itself can be kind of leveraged by all the partners who are part of this ecosystem.
I will come back to you, giving you a question so that you can keep it ready. A lot of data coming from grid, coming from vehicle, coming from utility, coming from map, their movement. All this data need to be brought together on one ecosystem or one software or maybe in portal or maybe in server. They need to perform in sync, which is unpredictable. For this time, it is unpredictable from the policy perspective, from the analysis perspective, standards perspective. So how do we prepare this complex industry without having prototypes or without having pilots in this ecosystem to give them an gist of how are they going to perform together? Because if you will start making something which is not existing, so AI, ML and algorithms which we are going to run, there would not be a ready-made material which can guide you how you and what are the limits. So be it from the data security perspective, data privacy perspective, and also from the transactional perspective between the stakeholder, there are no framework existing because these technologies are new. So that's the question. We'll come back to you. And Nikhil, many things I have to ask. Please take a microphone. You are into many things. You are into maps. You are into telematics. You are into hardwares also. Being president at Map My India, you see this transition happening where we are challenging as a nation to large giant players. And not only the detailing what we are doing in the map, but also the ecosystem which we are creating for connected highways, connected internet and connected grids, then connected household, connected industries, and these all are somewhere need to be mapped so that the monitoring, their tracking, their accountability, their tangibility remains transparent. So how do you see this transition and where do you see Map My India's role into it and anything which you wish to add to the value of the panel?
Sure. Yeah. Am I audible? Yeah, I think so. So good question. I mean, very expansive question. I'll have to actually summarize my thoughts in order to respond to that. So let me take a step back and see as to when you talk about digital footprint of e-mobility, and I'll go back to the national e-highways later, but because your question was more on this whole ecosystem. So let's see how the trend is evolving. So this whole notion of e-mobility everybody knows that it's very disruptive, very transformative. A lot of forces are transpiring to this new notion which will do multiple things. It will reduce cost, it will reduce carbon footprint, it will provide convenience, security, safety. It will change the whole behavioral paradigm, if I should say. Now, how will that happen? And then I will come back to the construct which is required to kind of address this. So starting from a vehicle to vehicle which is connected, to something which is vehicle as a service, to mobility as a service. Now, see, I was trained in telecommunication. So we were given very simple, which is +2 thing, that there is something called carrier wave, and information is kind of overlaid on top of it for transmission. You require some very high power, high frequency, horizontal setup to convey which you want to convey. I believe that mapping, because we believe that 80% of the world data has a geolocation context into it. Mapping is that horizontal platform which will lay various layers on top of it to extend and address various e-mobility issues. That's my fundamental thing. How would that happen? So today, if you see, a vehicle is a digital platform. Now, all OEMs are kind of forced to transform or evolve in connecting what we can call as a physical world, which is outside the vehicle, and the internal world inside the vehicle, right? So they become mobility as a service provider. In a way, in my communication, network service provider. How do they provide service? So the very notion of connectivity is one part, but multiple layers of information on top of this horizontal map that you spoke of is required. Now, what are those? The position of the vehicle, the curvature of the road, the weather data, the charging stations, the navigation attributes, many of these, and a lot of other information. Then only this whole notion of mobility will get established, because you talked about this ecosystem. And in this ecosystem, I believe, information is a collective investment. No one company can actually create all layers required for any services that you want to provide. So the platform is of the paramount importance, which allows seamless integration with multiple layers. You just talked about Web3, which allows things to be populated in a simple API form, allowing microservices to be created, not the old SOA architecture, seamless mashup, and then extending as a service. We in MapMyIndia not only provide the mapping part, but the platform part and the software part. How? By integrating this horizontal setup of capturing the world, one, taking or creating or acquiring or integrating the different layers which is coming from disparate places, mashing that up by modeling, manipulating, managing the type of data required for A or B application for e-mobility, and then making it available to enterprises, to the user commuter, or to the whole ecosystem at large. This platform we call integrated content and services platform. We are, and every day it is evolving, we are putting all our energy, all our investment, all our thoughts and vision into expanding this to address various problems that you spoke of.
I think 4 more things I'll come back to you for this, but let's take Uddhav on the conversation that before Uddhav you speak, I need to speak about you, because in this journey where you are coming from a company who was into logistic, now you are coming into connected, I would not say highway, but connected ways, and whichever way a material is getting transmitted from one place to another place, your role comes in. It may be container, it may be a truck, it may be a vehicle. This journey of technology, when you are coming into conversation with your client and the kind of solution they are asking back to you, how navigated you feel? I think there are no regulations, there are no much navigation from the top side. Majority of thing and majority of requirement you have to solve yourself. And then when you go back and give them an ecosystem that this is how this is going to help your container or your management of containers or management of your logistic or packet or parcel, how do they react, and do you see role of other stakeholder into it? That's a very important question which we want to know, because you are on the service delivery line. We are not on the service delivery line. You have to give them the ecosystem which they want. But what do you want? What is your wish list?
So yeah, great question. I think meeting customer expectations has of course been a challenge, and I think it will always be, especially in the field of logistics. Um, in fact, just a couple of days back, I saw a photo of containers being transported on a plane, and the caption said that this is what the customer wants, can you deliver it? So this was going around on all the logistic groups, and that's primarily what a customer wants. I think what we've seen happen a lot is that customers have they have an idea of certain technologies, whether it's RFID, whether it's GPS, and they'll usually contact you and say that I want RFID tracking for A, B, and C purpose. So one thing that we really try to inculcate in our company is to start thinking like doctors. When you go to a doctor and you tell him that I have a stomach ache and I'm having this medicine, he tells you usually to shut up. And he says, just explain to me what your problem is. I'm the doctor, I'm going to come up with a solution. So that's usually what we try doing. And given that path, I think what we also started realizing was that logistics is also a very connected ecosystem. If you think of any good or any product, even if I start talking about Flipkart, we view Flipkart as an e-commerce company. The products, before they land up at Flipkart's warehouse, were manufactured in China. They went onto a container, they came onto a ship. There was a port involved, there was customs involved, they cleared it, it came to a warehouse. From the warehouse, it went onto a truck. Then it went to a mother warehouse. From the mother warehouse, it goes to different assortment centers, and then it finally reaches a customer. And when the customer places an order, all he sees is dispatch from warehouse delivered. So a lot of clients who we are working with also have a sort of a very, I would say, a closed view of what is actually the problem, how we can solve it, and that's where the connected ecosystem actually comes up, that we are, and we have been, and we will continue to utilize the services of various vendors and people. We need data, for example, coming from ships. That's something that we can't track. In India, for example, you cannot import a tracker that can work on a direct satellite connection. Right. You can in America, you can buy it off Amazon, but you can't in India. You need a license to do that. So we are, for example, dependent on the ship to be able to send us that data. We then need to, so as a service provider, eventually what it comes down to is aggregating all of this data and giving the customer the answer that he actually wants to know, which is when should I import something, when should I make something go. And I think that's, we started off actually as just a simple RFID track and trace company, thinking that we'll just make a living by tracking things from A to B. And eventually we came up with a port automation system, a warehouse management system. We created an export platform for courier companies. Then we created a transportation management system. And I feel that this sort of problem solving is never really going to stop, because the problems are just getting more complex. And eventually, if you look at reducing logistics cost, it's a very difficult answer. There isn't really one way to do it. You can't look at any other country and say ki isne ye kiya, so I can do this.
I'll come back to you with a more specific use case, so that we can actually deliver to our audience that how MSME is going to work in India and how Gati Shakti is going to integrate the actual reduction in the logistic cost, provided our Honorable PM has recently opened a national policy on logistic. So we'll come back to you on Gati Shakti pilot. Praveen, so Praveen, you will have to add something more important, because you are owning two of India's largest charging station. You are building many more. You are also part of National Highway EV as a working group member and Charge Point Operators Society. Your journey is number one, we need to know. And in your journey, how these connected highways and these connectivity between the vehicle and the station, and your control not only on the ecosystem of data transaction, but also the commercial part of it, because you are somebody who is going to operate a station. You are somebody who is also giving confidence to the investors that this is the contract, and you have been handling contracts so well that if I may add from his behalf, that our commitment on National Highway EV is only 30%, but two of the prototype stations which Praveen is owning and operating is running on 72% utilization. And you will be surprised to know the national average of the charging utilization in India is only 3 to 5%. So tenfold we're going to deliver on the highway, and currently on the prototype 72%. So altogether, I want you to answer on the connectivity side, commercial utilization side, and how does this ecosystem of connected digital eco footprint contributes into your business? Over to you.
So firstly about the journey, that when we look at charging stations, what we look at is like a single charge in a mall or a single charge in a basement parking or on your household parking societies and anything. It is just a single charger. But how do we look at petrol pumps? What are we competing with? What is the existing technology? It's a proper infrastructure developed. When you see a petrol pump, you have a confidence that you will get your vehicle filled. But when you see a charger, you don't get that confidence because till you reach the charger, you don't know it is working, how is the condition, what is the phase of charging, and what is type of connector. So the data comes in that way also, that the data transmitted from the charger to the customer's mobile application through which he is charging the app, he's charging his vehicle, is the most important part, and how is it is protected, and how is its privacy of that data. And secondly, when we talk about the infrastructure, we need to develop something which is much more bigger and much more efficient and eco-friendly also in the case of e-highways and electric mobility. Because when we talk about electric mobility and we are using generator power, diesel power, and power grids to power the chargers, then we are not much efficiently eco-friendly. So we need to develop that technology also, that we develop chargers which are solar capable, which are powered through wind and thermal energies and different source of eco-friendly. And when we can talk about connected highways, so at this point of time, we cannot see a proper infrastructure developed at the highways also. Rather it be a city, you can see 10 different chargers, set up at a station or a parking lot or a mall. But when we go onto the highways, the main problem is that there are only 2 or 3 points. Only the major hotels or the restaurants which are on the highways which have the EV charging facilities with them. And that too we are not sure that they're working. Because we have already faced a little bit of issues in the highways as of now. And for the future, what we are developing is a proper infrastructure and an ecosystem that even at the 25-kilometer radius, you will get a 30-minute backup in the EV infrastructure, and even if your case EV is broke down. So that's the difference and how we connect the highways is like when you get a proper infrastructure, the connectivity, the backups, and reliability, the main points at this point of time industry, that you are not relied on what technology is there at this point of time and what type of chargers you need to get, what type of vehicles you need to get, and what is the distance at where the chargers and charging stations have to be located. So these aspects play an important role.
So input from these all are drivers, the transparency, yes, accountability, and yes, more information about the technology. What yes, you are going to get is not going to surprise you. These are going to contribute to the viability, right? So yes, on viability, I'll come back to you. Let me add Shashank into the conversation. Shashank, what Praveen is saying is, if we have all this together, then we will be able to make a more viable infrastructure. But when we say we will be able to have this together, I want you to give me an insight how deep and how in detail we can go when we are mapping them. So not only from the perspective of searching, but also from the perspective of connecting the information that I am going to land into a charging station or a food court or a toll plaza or maybe an highway which has entry, exit. So how predictable my journey is going to become is much of dependent on you and Nikhil, that these detailing are visible to the drivers. These detailings are visible to the ecosystem, not only the passengers, but also to the freight and to people who are going to give roadside assistance. How much detailing we can expect into near future? Practically possible, not virtually.
Perfect. So all we have already touched based most of the point. Now this is the world of edge devices. And I was going through that, somebody asked, what is a smart city? A smart city is, in a simple term, if any smart city which can generate, first challenge is that generate the data, which you can generate from multiple devices, you can store somewhere, you can edit it, and you can predict something. Then only you can be called as a smart city. Without that, all cities are common. They can't predict how much carbon they are generating, how much pollution they are generating. All such data need to be stored somewhere. And that's where the electric charging infrastructure comes in between, or any kind of road infrastructure come in between. So here the map has to play a very vital role. We need to digitize entire route, planning, everything. First, even you want to plan for any road construction, you have to plan A to B locations. Then you have to make the discovery. Okay, this is the route. And then someone will deliver you as an API which can be consumed and can be made any mobility applications for maximum usage of the consumer. Here, we got some glitches that what happened, everyone say very simple data is a new, mine. But, or AI analytics, BI, everyone talks. But the real problem is that if data is stored somewhere else, application is made by someone else, as devices is used by someone else, you can't make any as devices predictions. This is the problem UNL is decided to solve, that okay, all enterprise has this challenge, we will give a virtual private map access, then we will also empower that company that whatever business data they want to generate, they can generate. They can make it editable, routable from their angle, so business will be empowered to make the better usage their own mobility applications. If they, and data need maintenance, to be very precise. Whatever road, whatever concept we talk, data if we empower to the business that, okay, if there is any address, you find some error and you edit by themselves, then the true usage of all the mobility will happen. So that's the way we look forward to value in this.
Thank you, thank you. So I think we are very good with the introduction round, and now our panel and also the floor is open, because people whom we are seeing in the audience are also equally valuable for the discussion. That in next half an hour we are going to pick up things which are practically possible, which are in next few years can be delivered. So where you left, and now there is no marks for waiting. And for waiting for your name to be called. Please do join the discussion whenever you can. You may not be required to even raise your hand. You can just join the discussion. So I'm just continuing with what Shashank said with you, Nikhil. How much detailing we can expect in coming time? Because I see transaction is not only one way, where you are giving the detail of the data of the vehicle to the ecosystem, or stationary information which is there with the charger to the vehicle, but also vehicles are going to see the entire ecosystem in a digital footprint manner. And when it comes to safety, yesterday, I think Shashank, you were there with me in the opening of the miniature. We spoke to a length about the road safety. And when we are talking about road safety, there will be cameras, there will be sensors, and these sensors are mapped on the map. So this cycle is maybe not only two-way, three-way, four-way. How much detailing and how much practical viability we can expect from the mapping side, particularly to see where and what information coming from what geolocation?
First, I'll give you theoretical construct, and then I will lay again. There's information which is coming, because when you are in a fledgling state, and we are in the e-mobility in a very fledgling state, a lot of things are evolving. We are work in progress. So unless you have kind of created your foundation very strong, it's very difficult to kind of plan. Something Shashank said, that for anything to be called smart, what is smartness? If your ability to do things without being told to do is what I will call smart. In IT language, we call it AI, machine learning. How do you make the system smart? Through a lot of data. How would AI ML function well if they do? With lot of data. The more data you have, the more models you can create, the more training that you can give on the model, and that's how you can predict. So when Shashank says that information should be coming or would be coming from disparate places, these information are historical in nature, very dynamic, very historical. That is going to be mashed up with the real-time information. I will come to your safety, security angle. You have to have a foundation wherein all these can converge, get mashed, making this mashing, especially in data, some data could be sensor data, some data could be satellite data, some data could be GPS probe data, which is only giving you XYZ. Some data could be taken from a NPR camera. Some data can be coming from RFID. All these data have different formats. And then there is a foundation of what we call as geographical geometry, which will have, all aspect of spatial into it. X, Y, Z, curvature, topography. He said about if you were to create a new route, it's not only joining A and B. There are a lot of constraints, historical constraints, political constraints that it should go through my constituency, environmental constraint that it should not touch a reserve forest. Economical constraint, I cannot, like in US, create a nose straight road which has, only bridges and tunnels. It might be like this, helter skelter. Now, all these constraints is mapped again. So, this enormous amount of data, different disparate sources of data, matching the data and then extending as a simple API for any application to consume. And unless we do that, no mobility transformation would happen. I am telling you, please believe me, is an enormous difficult task. Now, putting a lot of time and energy into developing that platform is what we are doing. So when you said what is happening, so this was a theoretical construct. Now I'm giving you exact construct. What is happening, we are putting that across. We have almost created that, but again, it is work in progress. On the data side, you said there are a lot of static data available. So creating static data itself was difficult. Now you need to take information from, say, Vahan. Where is this vehicle registered? Where is the owner? Without actually, again, getting into the personal identifiable information, right? So creating an anonymization layer which takes into account the geography, but takes out the personal information out, is an engine that we developed, which says, okay, in these locality, these many vehicles are there. However, only these many charging stations are available.
Right.
This data is by and large available now. And as it is getting populated, so is the platform content reservoir is getting populated. Now the next set would be, and many of us have talked about it, the nuances of that charging station, many things, right? Now these are available, and it is getting available as the service is being provided. Now collating that data on this foundation layer and extending that is already started happening. More has to happen in an ecosystem manner where we are providing a collective offering. That is not a technical problem. That is more of an ecosystem problem, more a collaboration problem. But initially people always take a back seat before they start kind of going to the front foot. That is, I'm seeing a trend is happening where this amalgamation or collaboration of the sort in the ecosystem has started. Not to the fullest extent, but it is happening. So these are the two things. One is the technology stack, absolutely available. At least I can say on behalf of Mappa India that we are almost ready.
Right.
We are doing a lot many things that you talk about national logistics policy. Integrating, I heard of him talking about logistics problem.
Right.
So taking Vahan data, taking Sarthi data of the driver, IS gate data, FNR data, EWB data, all these integrating and providing that in a super platform called ULIP, Unified Logistics Interface Protocol. Now that we have done by generating or creating location context into it. How is this shipment traveling? Amalgamating that. So what I'm saying is technical stack from Mappa India side is ready. Content, the foundation part is ready. The topography part, the curvature part, the safety part, where is the accident prone zones, all that is ready. The static data is definitely there, and the dynamic part will continue to come. But there is a system already in place. As it will come, it will get hooked and a service will be extended.
So Natalia, you wish to add something?
Yeah, just to basically enhance what you're saying, and what we were doing and what we're thinking is just taking that system approach and start understanding exactly that, what would be the new actors in the system, and understanding who would be generating data, who would be owning the data, how that data is shared. And we can see a big movement in terms of actually also organizations trying to access that data and information to be able to to create new innovative business models, to enable new operations, especially when we're talking about e-mobility, about payment systems, about freight, about movement of vehicles, about understanding which charge points are free to use. But then we also need to start thinking about all the different interfaces and actually start looking at it from early on to understand what might come in the future. If we move to autonomous vehicles, if we move to mobility as a service models, what would be these interfaces that we need to unlock and to be able to have that exchange of information between different actors of the system. So quite a lot of, again, space and areas for innovation and for new products to come into the market, definitely.
So it's quite interesting. May sound personal, but it is absolutely professional. Where do we see Thalia in next 2 years in India? What kind of projects or what kind of engagement you're doing?
And yeah, I guess it's only from my limited view. I think the freight and logistics space are quite big. Also unlocking charging for all consumers, all users, people that use different types of vehicles, people that live in different types of houses, people that will have different charging needs. So just to make sure that we use data in the right way and yeah, have all these services to enable the transition to electromobility.
So welcome to the club then. We'll zero down a bit more with Indranil. Indranil, when we are talking, what we spoke last time is you have a question with you. Other than that, what you are going to add, I need one very important aspects to be covered is these complex data information which is coming from the map and the processes. You have managed to bringing another complex area which is grid and grid connected. Now it is two-way. Earlier it used to be one-way. So where you see your organization and your profile or your role going in this transition, and what we can expect in next 1 and 2 years by 2024.
Okay, so first of all, thank you, Mr. Nikhil, for actually elucidating a lot of the work that is going on already. And Thalia, of course, you're absolutely right that there's a lot of data integration. So there's a popular adage in Haryana, okay? It's called "Hathi palne ke liye na ganne ka khet chahiye." So that adage in English is that if you want to own an elephant, you need to own a sugarcane field, okay? So I think the sugarcane field for us is the kind of data that is there. And I'll tell you what exactly is already happening right now. So you're absolutely right that for any AI ML algorithm to really perform well, it has to go through the rigor of the data, as much credible data, and I would like to emphasize on the word of credible data. A lot of credible data as it runs through the AI ML algorithm, that much better or that much refined it's going to get over a period of time. Now, to come to how we can support in this entire ecosystem is that I'll tell you what's already happening in the energy ecosystem, that what we are already doing. So we have a forecasting tool which actually is based on a predictive modeling, which actually takes into account two sources of satellite data. It takes into account SCADA data, it takes into account NOAA data, and it also takes into account a lot of historical data of the Indian geography, to cull out the exact optimal output of a particular region in India in a gap of 15 minutes. So if you split 24 hours in a day into 15-minute blocks, that's the kind of predictive analysis that we are coming out with. And that is exactly what we are giving to our clients to whom we are providing energy, for them to predict what is their optimum utilization or requirement of energy at any given point in time in India, so that they can bid for that energy going forward. Now, this is already happening. It's not only happening in India, but as a platform, we are already doing it for all the SAARC countries, where we are actually taking in all this data, satellite data, all this data, and we are actually predicting what is their requirement in all the SAARC nations in real time. And that platform is already up. So in case anyone wants to kind of have a look at that, I'd be happy to kind of give an access to that, or show you a glimpse of, probably not give you an access, but definitely show you a glimpse of the kind of data analysis that we're doing. Now, when I look at our role into integrating into this entire ecosystem, it is just going to, so our platforms are already ready. It is just going to get enriched by the kind of data which MapMyIndia and all the other partners are providing. and again stack it on the same layer and refine the algorithm that we're already running. So it will be that much more easier for all the players to glean from each other's experiences. And at the same time, you will not only be able to predict or understand what is the requirement, or with GIS mapping coming into the whole fray, you'll not only be able to predict the requirement of where and how a vehicle is operating, but at the same time, you'll also be able to predict the output of each charging station. There would be certain charging stations you'd be surprised to know that probably over a given point in time, where there are preferential treatment of commuters to go to a particular charging station. And then you can easily augment that particular charging station or look at other charging stations, how they can improve upon their services and facilities.
Right.
So I think going forward, we feel that it's an exciting time for us to be a part of this ecosystem where we'd be surprised to see the kind of data which keeps on coming up.
I hope from the comprehensive description of Nikhil, you must have understood what load you're going to handle and what kind of data and from different sources is going to come to you, because there is nothing which we are going to leave in this project. We're going to have cameras and whatever. I don't want to list it again. You listed it very well. So coming out from the only one ecosystem on the national side, Uddhav, I want you to add one more thing into it, where we left your discussion last, is how this ecosystem of not only connected highways, but the entire ecosystem of delivery, not only the e-commerce which we get at home, but for the industry, is going to change in coming time. And what are the key areas where you are thinking, where you think that it is going to bring more change to the economy and to the MSME who are eagerly and hopefully looking to this ecosystem?
Right, thank you. So I think before that, I just want to touch upon one thing, which is what Thalia was talking about from the data perspective. You know, we were talking so much about data integration, and everyone here who's on the selling side, which I feel almost is everyone, you can all recall those meetings happening with clients saying ki mera data ka kya hoega, right? What's going to happen to my data? So that's that. I think so. You know, we've been working on blockchain since 2018. We were the first Indian company to be listed on the Linux blockchain showcase as well for our supply chain application in 2018. And while most of the world has been concentrating on crypto, we've simply been trying to figure out this data problem, you know, this data ownership issue. And when, you know, of course, a lot of companies talk about saying that I want to put this up on a map, I want data from other sources also, they end up themselves getting confused, saying that I don't want my data to be available to others, but I want others' data to be available to me. So it's a never-ending problem, and I don't think that there's a, I don't think we or anyone here has a proper solution on how it's exactly going to work. But I feel that eventually we are going to see blockchain taking some kind of form, and I think that there's still a lot of experimentation going on. But I think eventually that technology is going to play a role in terms of deciding who has access to edit, own, and view data. Those are the three sort of silos that we like creating whenever we are approaching any problem. Now, again, so that's sort of, you know, very interrelated and interlinked to the question that you just asked. If we look at logistics costs, we talk about the 15%, 16%. Someone will say 18, and that argument goes on. What we can conclude on is that it's high, right? We don't know the exact percentage because everyone uses a very different way to measure. But it's very high. And if you actually start looking at the split of logistics cost, there are certain costs which you can't avoid. You know, there's a cost of running the vehicle, that could be diesel. Yesterday, sir, at the event, we heard, you know, Honorable Minister say that for a diesel bus, it was about 104 rupees, and the electric bus, it became 60 rupees. So, you know, there's savings to be made there by looking at alternative sources of fuel. Then there are other costs involved of manpower. There's, you know, there's a ton of other costs. But what is a huge cost, which is what we primarily concentrate on, is about 20 to 30% in the industry, which is wasteful cost. This is the cost of not being able to find the customer location on time. This is the cost of a container being stuck at a port and not being evacuated because the custom house agent didn't tell the exporter to file the bill of entry before his bill of entry filing agent left the office at 7 p.m. This, if you look at primarily this 30%, this 30% is coming all from information being in different silos. because the port operator knew something before. So for example, as Nikhil said, ULIP is going to play a big role there, right? Because there people are going to be more, I would say, friendly, because it's a government-owned system. So, you know, there's more accessibility there. Players like us, like Mappa India, like UNL, they're all going to be also more open to sharing data, because we want to do a bit to contribute to society as well. So there's going to be a big role of the government to play there. If you look in America or UK or all these nations, data has been made available at a far larger scale than India. Right now, yes, we have e-Vahan, we have e-Parivahan, but if I tell someone that can you track FASTag data, you have to approach every single bank. Right now, NPCI is only making it available to someone who runs a toll system, or they say go and fight it out with the bank. There isn't any way for me to be able to track my truck on a FASTag. So for example, when you're working with companies, you have to work with every single bank that truck operator owns. So that data problem, I think, is just going to continue to exist, and it's only going to continue to grow, because as things are, we're talking about connection right now. As things get more and more connected, more data gets generated, you need smarter people to be able to write those AI ML algorithms. We keep talking about AI ML, we also have to really factor in human intelligence. It's the humans eventually that are writing that data. You know, that are creating that data, that are filtering that data. So I think that's a big role there. But when it comes down to this entire system of logistics costs, I think we have to look at this low-hanging fruit as well of efficiency. And you know, that's why our motto, it used to, by the way, be orchestrating efficiency in logistics, and then we took out the in logistics and just left it orchestrating efficiency, because it's not just logistics, it's supply chain, it's manpower, maintenance, it's everything. It's about energy as well. You know, for example, I've seen now, whether it's Mappa India or Google Maps, even for example, when you go to electrify, on the Google Map listing, they have a very nice system of being able to see the number of stations that they have in that particular kilowatt section as well. So that, you know, that was the first time that I actually, when I searched, Praveen, your station, that's the first time I actually saw that Google had made those small sections to say that there are these many, you know, 2 kilowatt, these many 3 kilowatt, with the charging port as well. Is it CCS? Which one is it? So I think that's going to play, I think that data point is going to play a big role, but we need to be very careful in terms of understanding where that data is going to come from, who are going to be the people who are going to filter that data, write those logics, and then we have to see what we can do.
Sorry to interrupt you, but to be frank and to be practical, do you see the silos, or maybe the lack of transparency or lack of confidence on each other to share data? Maybe a couple of examples you quoted is going to be that potential which can actually delay the growth or delay the speed of things. Because I was also suffering when we wanted to calculate the vehicle transportation between Delhi, Jaipur and Delhi, Agra. We wanted to have the precise number, that how many vehicles are going, and also the categories, whether they are a school bus or they are, you know, some corporate bus, or whether they are commercial buses. It took some good 6 month time to get that data from the toll and other stakeholders. Do you think these, you know, obstacles are having that potential? Because I'm asking from that perspective of ULIP has a larger vision and larger things to deliver to the country. But last time when we were talking about the Gati Shakti pilot, my role and my enthusiasm with that pilot is only limited to that one MSME operator who is producing something in India, if he has an international market, if he is getting orders from outside India, then he should be in position to send his vehicle, send his material through all air, water, railway and road. And to do this, he is right now connecting with a lot of stakeholders. So let's sort this out, bring him on a portal with his order and the category and material what he is going to send, and to which country, which place he wishes to send, and let other players contribute to that portal, that I will be calculating the toll, I will be calculating central excise and you know, export and whatever taxes are applicable on them, and give them a cost that if you send it by water, by railway, by road, by railway, by air, this is going to be your cost. So I just asking this from my perspective, that such pilots, are they going to help to people, or we can look at the larger side of ULIP?
So I think that the first question that you asked, which was that is it going to be a hindrance? I think 100% it is. It's you know, like Shashank said, data is the new oil. Everyone thinks that. So the problem is that everyone is very concerned about letting their data out. If right now, for example, you even ask me to share all my data, of course there is a big, you know, like, okay, what data do you want? What competitor of mine is going to have access to this data? All those problems are there. So I feel that combating that, honestly, the only real person who can solve that problem is the government. There isn't anyone else. So for example, when we saw the Gati Shakti master plan, which Abhishek ji showed us once, it was amazing to see all those data layers together because they consolidated data from all these private players. If you wanted to plan where should I want, where do I want to put up a warehouse? Through a simple click, you could see what is my intersection point where I can get internet, I can get road connectivity, I can get what on your decision time from 10 to 20 lakh of, hiring a Deloitte to say, please make a report, came down to seconds. All you, up the cost was of 3 clicks, not of 3 Deloitte consultants.
Right.
Now, so that part is something that the government's going to have to look at, but I feel that there are, like, see what we're doing with the MSMEs. One of our applications, Pick My Box, it's only catered to small MSMEs who want to export to the globe.
Okay.
We've done 4 million shipments to 165 countries. We get it picked up from their doorstep and delivered to that end country, and we're giving these MSMEs a platform to be able to send notifications to their customers, to be able to compare costs of do they want to, if they have a large shipment, they can look at air freight. If they have a smaller shipment, they can look at a courier company. Now see, all of this data wasn't made available to me by the government, but we as a private vendor were of course able to at least meet a certain amount of data. Now I don't have data from every single vendor, right? I'm only showing them prices, the people who've tied up with me. So eventually it comes a lot down to collaboration. So we look at this NHEV ecosystem. You, sir, have put together a lot of people who are now collaborating. We say that now we are together in this ecosystem and I'm willing to share my data with you. Beyond this, it becomes difficult. So pilots like this are very important because they get people together, get that little bit of trust going, and that's the only way we can actually move forward. Otherwise, we just end up fighting with each other and,
It's an important, obstacle which we are discussing. We'll come back to you, Nikhil. Let me take some input from Thalia and then we'll also take.
Just to add before that, just to reassure you, Udhav, I think at least in the energy space, the government has made data available for everybody. And when you talk about integrating blockchain, because energy is traded across through PPAs, which is virtual power purchase agreements, it is all done through blockchain. So at least from the energy ecosystem, it's done virtually and it's available.
Giving confidence, I was getting little anxiety. How it is happening in UK?
Good question. There is definitely a lot of progress in terms of actually the different sectors coming together and talking to find solutions that fit everybody. So we have been doing quite a lot of work with something called the EV Energy Task Force, that we're looking at both the energy and transport sectors. How do they collaborate? How do they work together to develop these solutions? But also understand where there are gaps, where the market needs to move, where we need to have support from government. And we're doing similar things around digital solutions, around data, communications. You've touched on something that is quite interesting around pilots. So part of our activities here in India is to actually build these pilot projects and bring UK innovators, work with people here as well to try and test solutions, try to understand what works but doesn't work, do that in a small scale to begin with, but also look at what the needs for the consumer is, what is the need for your customers, for others as well, and try and start building products that suit their specific needs and requirements. And I think that's key to, and hopefully in the UK we started working around that, capture the user requirements. I think it was mentioned by others as well, and build products and services that will be used in the future.
So I'm looking forward to see bit more contribution from your side to understand how it has happened and what kind of conversation you have held it in coming time. But let me come back to Nikhil, that, and then Shashank, I also want you to put input to it. You are the Alexander who is fighting the battle on the ground. Half of the battle, it looks like, from our side, it looks like is won, but still a lot of thing has to be done. Where do you see it's going? And I do not want this only to be a data-centric conversation, but also the point where Uddhav brought us, that trust is not building, and when trust is not becoming very common, it takes time. And do we really have time, or what is the way? Shortcut is not the right word to say it, but why are we even wasting time on it? let's do more to it, and your journey of, battling this, where do you so it is going, and is there any wish list you want me to carry, because I'm not in mood to drop that pilot of Gati Shakti for ecosystem of maybe one box to one quote, and your input is very, very valuable for me, so please go ahead.
No, I guess everything that has been said is absolutely right. But the fear of unknown is very intense. Many times people do not give, as Uddhav also said, not because they don't want to give, because they don't know as to what the impact would be. And since there is no trend in which this sharing or collaboration has happened, you take a back step. But as I said, and in energy sector, the sharing has started. This morning only I signed an MOU with Transport of Delhi, in which we can take their all data, static data, and they are providing that. Similarly, last year, 15th February, Government of India came out with a policy, which is GeoSpatial guideline, which says all government-funded data will be freely available. And this was not limited to 2 page of guideline. Just few months later, an organization as old as 250 years old, Survey of India, which always fortifies everything that they have, has created a portal in which all OpenStreetMap is shared openly. To the extent, some of the granular set of data, which is what called continuous operating reference stations, which actually gives you correction to compute your as-is value with that and come out with sub-meter or centimeter level of accuracy, they have made free for 6 months. So these are enormous things, let me tell you. I am in the geospatial industry for 28 years. And what I have seen in last 2 years is more than what I have seen in terms of changes in 26 years. So I'm extremely hopeful that things have started progressing. As a macrocosm of what as an impact we are making of the sharing that you talked about, well, even Abhishek ji, when he went on to taking data from Ministry of Shipping, from Railways, from Vahan, Ministry of Road and Transport and Highway, he got a lot of issues, right? That data was not even available to a kind of government organization, let alone the private entity playing a role into it. But ULIP is a reality, right? Second, in a macrocosm of that, I will tell you, if you go to our Mapples platform, Mapples platform, something that you were alluding to, why not allow people to do their business by providing all the insight? If you want to go from here to any place, say Agra, and you just look at our Mapples app, they will be able to compute all the toll charges. They will ask you for your vehicle consumption and the cost of the fuel, and give you a trip cost for various routes options that you have available. So that's right there. Anybody can see that.
Interesting.
Right? So these are manifestation of collaborations and opening of this sector, which was so far being very, very conservative.
So, Shashank, you wish to add something to it? Because I have 2 more questions from Uddhav and Nikhil.
No, I think he covered. If you have any other question, that would.
Yeah, please add.
So you said that you don't want to let go of the pilot. My first thing is that you cannot. Because like I was saying that the government is actually one of the main parties that can do this. See, so as Nikhil said, he's been in the industry for 26 years. That's how long I've actually been alive. So I've thankfully only been in the industry for...
I'm too old now.
I've only seen the industry since this new government came. So I've seen progress happen every single day. From the energy sector, yes, we had a meeting with the BSNL, and I think it was someone else who was talking a lot about them working with, the different energy providers in the country, and they cited a lot of examples of how energy sharing has really, really increased in the country and all over the world. So I feel that there are certain things which are very industry agnostic. Given that, I feel that the government is definitely doing their bit now, and especially with ULIP, and we were there for NLP, seeing, and honestly, when we saw the Gati Shakti master plan, we saw a draft version of it, you remember, so I think about 5-6 months back. I wasn't expecting to see what I saw. I was honestly blown away with the amount of data that we had. And as Nikhil very rightly said, there is if you go to many companies or even ministries right now and ask them to give you data, they will take 2 to 3 weeks to collate data from their multiple offices, but they will still say ki data I have will just take me 3 weeks and 10 Excel sheets. So the point is of what he said, I use Mapples, for example. I've seen initially when they launched the app, they didn't have road view of everything. I've seen now ki our office is also available on that road view. So I've seen how that data slowly grown, and I think it's of course happening at a much faster pace now, and that's going to continue to happen. But I feel that yes, I feel that the government here has to play a very strong role. I feel they already are, and NLP was the very first move to actually start consolidating all of this data coming from multiple ministries, because I think Prime Minister Modi also said it's about 6 ministries in total that actually contribute to shipping one thing from A to B.
Absolutely. So, with this, we have reached to a very interesting conclusion that not only from the national perspective of what our leadership is to do, or as a country we are approaching or we are aiming, but also from the implementation point of view, when we have to reach to the detailing and we have to deliver it to a small entrepreneur, maybe an MSME or maybe a very small producer of some material in India, and this would not remain, on the papers. That definitely I can assure you. I am one person in this panel who have nothing to sell, but definitely this is something very important for me to take away from this panel, that such micro level implementation and ground touching pilots, ground touching prototypes and proof of concepts should always continue looking and comparing both the global national vision and people's choices, people's conservations, their reluctance, their insecurities and their confidence. So with this, we have 2 minutes left. Anybody in audience and from our next panel also may have any question we would like to have, or else we'll take a quick closing remark and we'll move to next session. So any question, anybody? We will then move to our next session, and before we move to our next session, I'll quickly take very quick 1 minute closing remark from each of you, this time starting from Shashank.
First of all, I really appreciate organizing this meeting. And on top of that, you are pioneer to connect all of us industry people, and you advocate all prototyping to the government, all the new concept, e-corridor, e-connected highway, a lot of things you have taken initiatives, especially in Parveen working on the, and with the Delhi-Jaipur highway, you delivered, you showcased it, how all such technology helps. So we really appreciate and look forward for more engaged session.
Praveen. Thank you, Shashank.
As adding to one point, which we all were discussing to the data, that data is the most valuable thing you have at this point of time in the country or in the world. Because if we have your data, if I have somebody's data, he's willing anything to get that data back. He will pay anything to me to get that data back. So as we talk about data integrity and connected data and transferring data from one person to another or between companies, we also need to assure data privacy.
Data is the new oil, and
New
it's also
oil,
going
yes.
to be the new currency.
As I was searching a few days back, what I got the result that Google earns 30 to 40% of income from the Google search only, which is
Wow.
the data.
Interesting.
What you are searching and what you are dealing with every day.
Yes, Uddhav, your closing remark to the oil and the currency.
So I'll keep the data thing very short. I just think that we need to also sort of have a differentiation between what data is very confidential and what isn't. I feel that a lot of companies, when you're pitching something to them very valuable, or pitching them any product, which is what I spend most of my life doing, the argument primarily gets obfuscated simply by thinking about, can I use your SaaS application? Can you build it for me? They don't think about the fact that a company like me, actually, I have no value for your data. I am a B2B enterprise. I'm not Amazon. If I have 4,000 sellers on my platform, my job is to help you get things from point A to B at the cheapest cost at the quickest point of time. I'm not Amazon. I can't start competing against you for making a leather product or anything like that. So I think that we just need to find that differentiation. From what, of course, was the topic of this discussion, I feel that the NHEV pilot is extremely critical for one simple point, which is that we are right now where petrol vehicles were 100 years ago. And we're all very, very impatient people. So I think this is one of the first time where we are in a panel where we are not being asked about when is this policy coming out, when is that policy coming out. Because usually that's all that happens. People keep saying that aag lag gayi, ab kya hoega?
Pilot is not meant for
I
the waiting
remember-
for policy. Pilot is to
I'm sorry to
contribute in the
interrupt you
policy.
guys, but we will have to wrap up a bit quickly.
Yeah.
We're
So
running
we'll
out
quickly
of time.
take closing remarks of two more
So,
people with.
the only one line that we all believe in one thing, the collaboration and sharing is very important. And both from the system side and also socially. So systematically it is available, all we talked about that. Socially we should start from this platform itself.
We have already started, and I'm sure that your role as a integrator of all this detailing is going to be very, very crucial. Thank you again, you, and your
So
closing
I
remark.
think, I think as a data integrator and a person who crunches data, we talk a lot about artificial intelligence, but more often than not, we have to contend with artificial stupidity. So I think as a player, I'd like to put in more of that intelligence in by adding the rigor of the data into the algorithm and hopefully being an integral part of this NHEV ecosystem.
You ask me, I will tell you separately that how people indirectly call me stupid when I go to them and I tell them that this is how we are going to work together. For 1 minute they are spinning. No. This is not at all possible. But later they understand and they say, you were the best, you were the right to take this decision. Yeah, your closing remark.
Yeah, quick one. I think for me is let's use data responsibly to unlock innovation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for being wonderful audience and wonderful viewers who are seeing it online.
Thank you so much, everyone. It was an honor to have you all here. I now request Mr. Abhijit Sinha, on behalf of Informa Group, please present the mementos as a token of love and appreciation to all our speakers. Yeah, are you part of the